So in this lesson, we're going to be dealing with dimensional analysis. This means we're going to deal with unit conversions. Typically, what I suggest my students to do is that you first want to write the unit as a fraction. So if there's just one unit, then you would put it over 1, which is going to be today's lesson. So write the unit as a fraction. Then the second step is that you're going to want to always carry the unit diagonally. So carry the unit diagonally. And move towards the unit. Move towards the unit you are solving for. This may be done in one step. This may be done in multiple steps. So let's go ahead and look. So in example 1, what am I starting with? Well, I'm told I have 8,000 pounds. That's the unit I need to write as a fraction, and make sure you keep the unit with it. So it's 8,000 pounds. I need it as a fraction. There's only one unit there, so I'm going to put it over 1. And then always we're going to use multiplication, and I need to get rid of pounds. So to get rid of it, it's got to go in the diagonal. So pounds are going to go here. Is there a unit where I can go, is there a conversion factor where I can go from pounds to tons? Because that's my goal here, is to get to tons. Absolutely. There are 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. So now what happens here? Well, look, these in the diagonal, the units are going to actually cancel. And the only unit left I have is tons. So I'm ready to now multiply straight across. So 8,000 times 1 is 8,000. And tons is on top, so it'll be right next to it. Over 1 times 2,000 on the bottom would be 2,000, but there's no unit on the bottom. I should simplify that, because I can do 8,000 divided by 2,000. That's equal to 4. So the answer to this is that it's 4 tons. Number 2. On number 2, what do I start with? Well, here I start with 4 yards. So 4 yards is going to go on top. Since I need to make it a fraction, it's going to go over 1. So now I need to get rid of yards, so if it's on the top, I've got to move it diagonally. Yards right here. Now, I've got to go from yards to inches, and maybe I'm a little rusty and I say, ooh, I don't really know that, but I know how to go from yards to feet, and then once I get that, I can go from feet to inches. So let's start filling our numbers in. There are 3 feet in 1 yard, and there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Now let's start to cancel out our units and see what we're left with. The yards are in the diagonal, so they cancel. The feet are in the diagonal, so they cancel. All I'm left with is inches, so I'm ready to multiply straight across. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 12 is 144, and that inches is on top with it. All of that over 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. Well, that's silly. We wouldn't leave it like that. 144 divided by 1 is 144 inches. Let's look at some examples from the metric system. Now, with the metric system, most of the science classes still use what we would refer to as the King Henry died unexpectedly drinking chocolate milk. And generally that's okay to use, but I still kind of want you to see how this works with dimensional analysis, where we're setting up fractions. So let's go ahead and take our 427 hectograms, and we're going to put it over 1. And we'll put our multiplication symbol. Hectograms is going to go here. And I can go from hectograms to grams because really I can convert anywhere within the system within 1 step. Now, here's where hectograms are, and here's where grams are. The hectogram is farther to the left, which means it's going to be larger. So 1 of the hectograms is equal to, well, let's look. How many times did you have to move to get from H to U? 1, 2 letters. So that's like 2 zeros. So if you had 2 zeros and put a 1 in front of it, it's like saying 1 hectogram is like 100 grams. Or you can just memorize that. Now, the hectograms here would cancel. And we're ready to multiply straight across. 427 times 100. Well, we can do 427 times 1, which is 427, and then just add 2 zeros. So we're talking about 42,700. What? Grams. I don't even need to mess with the ones. I know if it's going to be over 1, that's going to be my answer. Now, another way you can do this is if you go ahead and write 427 and put the decimal right here, Hectograms is here. We would need to move 1, 2 spaces to the right. So you can move 1, 2 spaces to the right. That's where your new decimal goes. What would you fill in here? 2 zeros. So again, you can use what you've learned in the past to get to the same answer. Let's go ahead and do dimensional analysis with number 4. With the number 4, what do we start with? We start with 41 centiliters. We're going to put that over 1. We got to get rid of centiliters, so we're going to go ahead and put that in the denominator so that these would cancel out. And we're going to move towards decaliters. So if we go back to King Henry up here, our centiliters is right here. And our deca, the one with the A comes before first in the alphabet, so we always say that that first D is like the DA. So deca. This is where we need to go. Now, that means that the deciliter is larger because it's farther to the left. So 1 deciliter is equal to, well, it's kind of times we have to move. 1, 2, 3. So 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to put a 1 because there's always on base 10. So 1 deciliter is equal to 1,000 centiliters. Now we're ready to say the centiliters would cancel. Multiply straight across, and we have 41 decaliters over 1,000. And we don't have a unit, so that's it. And so we're ready to divide. Well, when we divide, we would get 0.041. We're going to put a 0 here as a placeholder. Decaliters. That's all we're left with. Again, you can use King Henry. Start with 41. Put your decimal here. If we're starting with centiliters and we got to go backwards 1, 2, 3 units, you can go backwards 1, 2, 3 units. That's where the new decimal goes. What do we fill in here? A 0. So point. Then we put a 0. 4, 1, and put a 0 on the front as a placeholder, and you still get your decaliters. So either approach is well. You can use either one, but you do need to at least be familiar with dimensional analysis with our metric system as well.